Welcome to The Explainer. Imagine, if you will, a realm choked by the soot of endless war. A place where the heroes are long dead, and all that's left are fractured minds. Today we're stepping into the ashes of a fading legend known as the Shadow at the Shattered Gate. I'll be your guide through this cursed tale. But look, we aren't just going to sit here and read a story. We're going to use this grim, dark fable to dissect the very anatomy of the human psyche. So let's just dive right into the abyss.
A void in steel, where the light dares not flicker. This haunting line introduces our central figure, the Black Knight. He stands guard out at the Iron Gate, deep in the absolute silence of the woods, where his blade is literally the only law. And you need to understand, he is not a hero. Not in the traditional sense anyway. He doesn't seek glory, he offers absolutely no parley. He's more like an unyielding mountain standing right in the path of the sun, casting this long, cold shadow where no flower could ever possibly bloom.
And he carries something known as the Midnight Shield. Now, every traveler who approaches this Black Knight brings their own mirror, a weapon they call a shield. But when they finally face him, they only see their own secret fears reflected back in his polished midnight surface. You see, the Black Knight doesn't fall when struck, because he represents something completely immovable, the crushing weight of every unspoken regret that eventually halts the progress of the soul. He's the literal manifestation of the shadows every single one of us tries to outrun.
To truly understand this shadow, we have to meet the three fractured pieces of the psyche drawn to fight him at the Iron Bridge. Let's start with Act 1, the hunger of the Eid.
The very first knight to challenge the shadow is the Silver Wolf. Picture this, his armor is literally fashioned from the melted coins of conquered villages. He is the raw, untamed embodiment of the Freudian Ide. He's not fighting for crowns or creeds or any of that. He fights for the red thrill of rupture, that exact violent moment where steel meets bone. He's driven by this primal, screaming void inside of him. His soul is just a furnace of pure, unrefined want, looking to feast on the reputation of the Black Knight, the only creature out there that has never bled. When the wolf charges, his war cry is a jagged howl that cares absolutely nothing for the tomorrow it's about to burn to the ground.
But raw, screaming hunger is never the whole picture of the mind, right? Which brings us to the second act of our tragedy. Act 2, the ego of brittle glass.
Standing in direct opposition to the wolf's pure fury is the High Seneschal. Clad in this meticulous crystal armor, he perfectly represents the ego. He just watches the carnage of the wolf with a cold, calculating eye. To him, the Black Knight isn't some terrifying monster under the bed. No, he's just a strategic obstacle, a puzzle to be negotiated or maybe bypassed. The Seneschal lives entirely in that narrow space between desire and law, constantly polishing his crystal reflection just to hide the inevitable rot of the battlefield. He really believes he can strategically solve the shadow through reason, diplomacy, and just the right application of force. He's deeply convinced his identity is this pristine fortress, completely capable of withstanding the chaos of the woods.
Yet hovering above both that primal hunger and cold reason is something so much heavier, something suffocating. Let's step into Act 3, the superego's frozen throne.
Looming over this soot-choked battlefield is the Pale Inquisitor. His armor is actually etched with the names of every sin committed by his ancestors. It's incredibly grim. He bears this heavy, leaden banner of absolute law. And here is the absolutely crucial point about his dark motivation. He doesn't seek the Black Knight out of hunger like the wolf or out of logic like the Seneschal. He's there for brutal punishment. In his mind, the Black Knight is a divine scourge, a holy mirror meant to simply crush the unworthy. Wrapped in his suffocating, rigid morality, the Inquisitor actually desires to be annihilated by the shadow. He believes that only the total erasure of the self could ever count as true purity to a silent god.
Okay, let's take a step back and look at the clinical architecture of this whole tragedy. We've got the Silver Wolf mapping directly to the id, driven entirely by desire and hunger. Right in the middle, the High Seneschal stands as the ego, relying on reason and brittle glass to mediate the world around him. And finally, the Pale Inquisitor represents the superego, just crushed under the sheer weight of absolute law and punishment. What we are looking at are the three distinct domains of the human mind, totally fractured and on a collision course in the dark.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it leads us right to the ultimate climax of this explainer. What happens when desire, reason, and punishment strike the void simultaneously? Just imagine the tension here.
These three knights reach the threshold of the abyss. They converge on the Iron Bridge, and at the exact same breathless moment, they swing their weapons and strike the Black Knight.
The collision is, well, it's catastrophic. It's what we call the unveiling of the threefold king. The wolf's relentless hunger slams right into the seneschal's crystal glass. Instantly, that glass shatters under the crushing weight of the Inquisitor's leaden law. And right in the dead center of this massive, incredible impact, the Black Knight's visor violently swings open. But instead of a monster or a demon, it reveals absolutely nothing, a complete psychological vacuum. That is the horrific realization at the very core of our fable. The shadow they were fighting, it wasn't an enemy. It was the void that held their fragmented minds together.
Out of this shattered collision walks the true knight, the synthesized sovereign. He's neither beast, nor man, nor saint. He is this grim, gray figure who has finally synthesized his fractured psyche. He takes the wolf's fire to drive him, the seneschal's eyes to guide him, and the Inquisitor's heavy burden to ground him. He walks away understanding a deeply chilling truth. His light is really just the friction of his own internal darkness rubbing against the laws of a cold, uncaring world.
So, as we reach the end of this dark legend, I have to turn the mirror back onto you. Can you outrun the shadow? When you look into the polished midnight surface of your own shield, what unspoken regrets reflect back at you? We spend so much of our lives letting our raw desires, our careful logic, and our punishing guilt just battle it out, trying desperately to defeat the shadows we cast.
But the fable leaves us with this heavy, haunting finality, the tragic weight of eternal isolation. You see, the true knight didn't defeat the shadow, he wore it as his skin. Achieving true synthesis of the mind means accepting that the void is a permanent part of you. It means carrying the crushing weight of the world's unspoken regret entirely alone forever. You can't run from the Midnight Shield, you can only embrace it. So, I'll leave you with this. What shadow are you still trying to outrun?